Hey friends, and welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. And as usual, we got some more Reddit posts to check out today, so be sure to subscribe if you're new here, and let's get into it, guys. I made my high school chemistry teacher lose his job. I went to a ghetto high school in a poor community, but my parents raised me to work hard so I could get out of there. My parents never went to college, but because of this, myself and my siblings have all gone to good schools out of state. I maintained a 4.0 until the year in question in high school, taking 5 advanced courses a year, out of 6 total, with the last 6 not offering an honors alternative. I learned to get very little sleep because of the amount of work these courses required, and because my school didn't have tutoring aids or anything of the like. Didn't understand something? Tough crap, get to Googling. So in one of my upperclassmen years, I signed up for an advanced chemistry course. I knew it would be hard, but assumed, like the rest of my courses, that if the class was minimally structured and Google came through per usual, I would be fine. Other students warned me not to take the course, but since I wanted to go to college for chemistry, I knew I had to go through with it. The teacher was horrible. He was old, which is fine, and didn't offer any after-class support, which was normal, but also didn't even offer in-class support. His answer to even basic questions was, "You should understand that. Talk to me about it later." But later never came. He didn't offer lunch hours, didn't offer after-school hours, and in class would just put up the answers, which were already available online and in the back of the book. My family didn't have fancy tutor money and none were readily available in my community anyways. I studied my ass off, but when the first test came back, I had a D-, with no notes to even understand what I had done wrong. When I went to speak with him about it right after class ended, missing part of my next course in the process, he simply told me to look more closely at the textbook for help, and that he didn't have time for me. He was 2 weeks behind the explanations that he did give, because he was constantly distracted. All of this is bad, but didn't deserve him being fired yet. What did was when he got dangerous. In an experiment working with hydrochloric acid, a plug held the concentrated stuff in a tube with some magnesium and reacted to form hydrogen bubbles. Well, one of the other students in my group didn't plug the thing properly, and the plug fell out, with the magnesium being stuck in the tube now without the HCI. So I asked him how to get the tube back, expecting him to tell us to discard the HCI solution, rinse with water, and start over. I'd read the safety section in my textbook, which had this approach to working with acids. His response? He insisted that I stick my ungloved hand in the solution and just grab the plug, and then, still in the solution, plug it back in. He wouldn't even put his own hand in to do it, so my high school self thought this was an inherently bad idea. I took some more magnesium from the workbench and kept adding it to the solution until it stopped reacting, eating up all the HCI to just leave water. And it kept getting worse. One day he brought what he claimed were illegal fireworks into the classroom and started setting them off. He thought it was funny to point them at us wearing no safety equipment or goggles and hoodies that could have easily caught the fiery things. He frequently would leave the room while a group of high school kids were playing with Bunsen burners and caustic chemicals. So in combination with the total lack of education I was getting, I didn't feel safe. Did I mention he was sexist too? I'm a girl, by the way. All of the boys got A's on tests with no explanations. He even lost one of the other boys' tests, and straight up said in front of me and the rest of the class that we would just give him an A-, assuming that he had done well. Later on, I had asked the other student for help understanding something, and he didn't even know what was going on in the course, so I knew it was just BS. Every other girl I asked was getting the same inexplicable grades as I was. This wasn't unusual on its own either, as I lived in a very conservative area and had several sexist teachers. Just usually, they'd at least still grade fairly. Last contextual thing, my high school teachers' union had negotiated for tenure. After coming to college, I've learned that this is a very unusual thing, and in retrospect, it's an idiotic thing. This chemistry teacher was tenured, which meant that there was basically no way to fire him. Honestly, I felt bad for the bitter old man, because after a botched surgery, he was constantly in pain. He was still teaching because he refused to retire, and he had a son going through college that he needed to pay for. But at a certain point, this was affecting my chances of getting into college. I wasn't about to let one man's issues affect prospects for the rest of my life. So I looked up recording laws for my state and found that it was a one-party consent state, meaning that I could legally record my teacher, as long as the campus didn't say anything against it. They had no policies, and I was one of the parties consenting. So for a month, with my grade tanking despite hours of studying and 3 study books on the course, I recorded him. I recorded his fireworks, his lambasting female students, his crying in the back chemical storage room leaving us unsupervised. I recorded the 3 times he had left campus inexplicably, leaving the front office to send a last-minute substitute to open the door and let us in. You know the 15 minutes and I'm legally allowed to leave meme? That was a constant joke for my class. And then I made a throwaway Gmail to make a throwaway Dropbox account, big at the time. I uploaded everything and emailed it to my superintendent, with the ultimatum that if something wasn't done I would email the recordings to the local news, and that I really didn't want to do that. Within a day I heard back, with her assuring me that I wouldn't be punished for ratting him out. My parents, her, and myself met. We went over my grades, my unmarked tests and homework, and the videos. They asked me first to talk over my concerns with the teacher, and I said I was uncomfortable with that given his treatment of female students. The superintendent said she wouldn't tell the teacher who had submitted the evidence, but that they needed to speak with him about the concerns to hear his side of the story. My parents and I said that was completely reasonable as long as my name was never mentioned. The next day, the teacher said he needed to speak with me after class alone. I told him I couldn't as I had another course after that, and he said that it was important. I turned on my phone's recorder again right before the class ended, and as I was packing up, he approached me. Due to the shape of the classroom, I was literally backed into a corner, and would have had to push this man to the side to get out. He then started saying that one of the students in the course had brought unfounded concerns and lies to the administration about what was going on in the course, and that he knew we hadn't always gotten along well, but that he hoped I wouldn't have done that to him. I lied through my teeth and said that I didn't know what he was talking about, that he was making me uncomfortable by blocking my access to the door, and that I was late for my next class. He didn't even deny what I was saying, just said that since I clearly had a problem with him, he'd be willing to stay after class to help me specifically, since it seemed like I was struggling so much. After that, I told him I really needed to get to my next course, and he finally moved. I emailed the superintendent that recording during my next course, and CC'd my parents. My parents were furious. The superintendent was mad too, because while my parents were poor, they dressed up nicely. My mom was an expert in bluffing about getting a lawyer that we totally couldn't afford, so a liability lawsuit was probably ringing through the lady's mind. Since the district couldn't fire him, he was put on immediate, permanent medical leave. While the district was still paying his full pay, they gave us one unqualified substitute after another. 2 months before the national exam for the course, they gave us a female teacher that they had pulled out of retirement, but that had actually taught the advanced chemistry course for years. She was a godsend, and even held 8-hour Saturday classes so that we could catch up with the curriculum, at least enough to pass the class. In those 2 months, we covered just enough of the test material that our class had a 50% pass rate. According to my upperclassmen friends, this was a lot higher than it had been for their years, which was less than 10% of the class passing. The superintendent also wrote me a thank you college recommendation letter, partially to keep me quiet and partially because they had been trying to get rid of this guy for years. My little sister took this course a couple years after me and said that the new teacher was competent and they were still at that 50% pass rate. Just found the recordings again and forgot that he thought Ebola was a conspiracy. Such a 5-star education. This happened in the USA, by the way. Sorry, should have clarified. Boomer smashed the glass out on the front window of my store and then blamed me. I own a retail store that opens at 10 a.m. every day of the week. This morning a boomer showed up outside at 9:55 while I was in the back having coffee before I opened up, when he started to bang on the glass yelling, "Hello, does anyone actually work at this place?" He must have been yelling incredibly loud because I heard through a few walls and could hear him pretty clearly. He did this for about a minute before he became enraged that we weren't open yet, and started to hit the glass harder. I think his watch must have made contact with the glass and it shattered. I was watching him do all this on my exterior security cameras, so I immediately went out there to talk to him about it, and asked why he hit the glass so hard. He said that we weren't open when we were supposed to be. I explained to him that we open at 10 a.m. and he said that I was lying, because he's come to our store at 8 a.m. before. He didn't. Then I picked up the sticker that was on our door off the ground that clearly shows the time we are open, and he said, "Well, how was I supposed to know that was there?" I couldn't be bothered to entertain this idiocy, and started asking him for his information because he just broke my window. He started going on about how he won't give me his information because he wouldn't have had to do that if I was open at the correct time, as if a store not being open is justification to smash their glass. I told him he was going to pay for it or I would have to get the police involved, to which he replied, "You can't prove anything." I told him I have 7 cameras that show him doing that, and also the license plate of his truck. He called me an effing a-hole and told me I've lost his business forever. I reported it to the police and gave them his license plate plus the video. They're going to go knock on his door and get back to me. I'm sure he'll throw another tantrum when they show up. A classic boomer doesn't read signs and can't use Google, so he gets irrationally angry story. I don't know how he escalated to smashing windows level within about 2 minutes of showing up, but he did. You're 5 minutes early? How dare you? This happened a few years ago when I was a driver for a national pizza chain. This woman calls around 2:30 p.m. She explains to the manager she's having a Bible study at her house at 3:30 and wants a pizza exactly at that time. The manager explains we can't guarantee exact times, but we can be there within a 10-minute window on either side. The woman supposedly agrees and we take the order. Now it turns out she's not actually in our delivery area but slightly outside. Normally we'd have said no, but she was a little old lady without a car and we were slow, so the manager asked if I would do it. I looked up the address, saw it was only a quarter mile out of the area, so I said okay. If anything, the tip would cover the gas. So we take the order. The manager explains the 3:30 situation, and we agree we'll make the order. Literally one large thin pizza double cut, which should have been a red flag for me, at 3. So it'll be ready around 3:10 and I'd be at the house around 3:25 to 3:30. Perfect. Everything works out great. No traffic, every light is green, and I get to the door right at 3:25. Then this 60-something-year-old blue-haired biddy opens the door and scowls at me. "Hello, ma'am, I have your pizza right here." "Why are you here?" I look at the delivery slip to ensure I have the right address. "I apologize, ma'am, is this not blank address?" "It is, but you're supposed to be here at 3:30. Why are you here?" I smile and explain the 10-minute window and how I tried to be as close to 3:30 as possible. She goes on a tirade about how she now has to reheat the pizza because I'm so early and this is the worst customer service she's ever experienced. At this point, I apologize and ask if she would still like the pizza. She harumphs, grabs exact change from the hall table, hands it to me with a scowl that would shame a devil, and I give her the pizza. When I get back to the store, the manager is hanging up the phone. The customer called back to the store right after I left and told the manager about the large rude driver, i.e. me, who arrived too early and so the pizza was cold when her guests arrived for Bible study, who were pulling up as I left. When the manager refused to give her credit and informed her she was not to be delivered to again for apparently calling me rude names over the phone and bragging about not tipping, the woman got irate, demanding corporate's number. My manager was fed up and told her to look it up on the website. Alright guys, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed and also subscribe to the channel for more Reddit shenanigans. So take care and I'll see you next time.